Hi. Hey folks, thank you so much for coming. We're here today to celebrate the closing of Sun-Dried, a solo show by 𝙍𝙤𝙨. We're here at Tempest Gallery. My name is Kate Reed. Thank you to 𝙍𝙤𝙨 and Chris Baker for putting this all together. I wanted to get started by talking about this incredible piece that's right behind us, Extended Family. It has such an incredible magnetic presence, and I was just hoping that you could walk us through some of the symbolism.
Yes, absolutely. So hi, I think I know most of you here, but for those who don't know me, my name is 𝙍𝙤𝙨, and I'm super grateful to be here at Tempest in good company with Kate, very taken care of by 𝙍𝙤 and Chris. I just want to say thank you to so many people that helped make this exhibition happen. First off, 𝙍𝙤 and Chris, of course, we wouldn't be here without your vision and your heart and your drive and your at not getting down by never saying no to anything that is too ambitious. I kept being like, maybe we should tone this down. And they were like, no, just go for it. So I'm really, really grateful for that encouragement and spirit. And I had a lot of people at my job help me. Serena and Izzy are here from Beam, shout out to them. Everyone who's just like, hey, how are you doing? And Carlos in particular helped me with the spoons, and my friend Meg and Leo helped me throughout this install process. And I have to say thank you to Powerhouse Arts, and thank you to Manhattan Graphics Center, and the incredible fabrication team at Manhattan Graphics Center, Lisa, Mehdi, and Kelwin. So I'm really grateful for it. Was a team effort, very much so. So very grateful for that. But yeah, so I'll talk about this sculpture and the symbolism and inspiration. It was a bit of an image that was haunting me in the best way possible. I had this very vivid image of a large bowl surrounded by spoons. And I have my little sketch here of it when I was first thinking of it, so I figured I would pass it around. Yeah, I was really thinking about I was thinking about the ritual of heating water as being something very grounding and something that is as old as time, and something that no matter where we come from or what cultures we're coming from, our ancestors were always heating water to care, either the act of heating water to make tea or to make pasta or to bathe in. This act of heating water is a ritual of care. So I wanted to kind of create a moment to that. So if you look closely, you'll notice that the water is a little bit bubbling and a little bit steamy. It is hot. So this shroud of spoons, I was really thinking of in this simple act of heating water, feeling like you're surrounded by all the generations before you that have done this same thing. And what does it feel like when you're in a simple solitary act, maybe in the kitchen, to be surrounded by all the generations that came before you. So I really wanted to create that moment for commune and a moment of intimacy. And hopefully when you leave and you do something very simple in the future, you can kind of imagine everyone surrounding you and giving you strength and giving you nourishment. I felt very strongly that I wanted all the spoons to be angled in a way that they looked like they were feeding you, coming to give you a spoonful of nourishment from the other side, which ended up meaning I had to do a lot more physics and math than I anticipated. But yeah, definitely a pursuit of love and devotion. So yeah.
So when you say other side, do you mean the other side of the veil?
Yes, the other side of the veil.
Because it's interesting, shroud is not the word that I've heard you use yet. So shroud connotes this sense of, communion with the ancestors and that acknowledgement of their absence or separation, but also a spiritual connection to them.
Yeah, it's just reminding you that you're always in proximity, that they are in fact not absent if they're not visible, So it's just kind of making visible that proximity that's always there. When I was really little, something I would do to comfort myself is I would pretend that I was sleeping in God's hand, and I would like hold his thumb. I was like, this is like, I don't know, just to like imagine yourself being held or being surrounded. It's like, it's not imaginary. It's actually a little more true. So.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify. Another thing that we had talked about, leading up to this talk was perhaps the intended like viewership for this piece. You had mentioned perhaps one would come here and like kneel, and I'm just wondering about that sense of like scale relative to the sculpture. Is this the view or more like lower down to the ground?
I think it's really come as you are. The emotion I just wanted to create was being surrounded, but whatever that relationship is. I know we had played with the idea of like trying to make seating so people could spend time with it, but I was like, oh, I don't really picture like a massive group like around it. I picture it kind of being like a little more of a solitary altar, like one by one you take your turn filing up and like you feel surrounded and you feel centered. But yeah, if people want to, they're welcome to sit lower to it or like view from all angles. I know when I go to a gallery, I'll usually be like kneeling on the ground and like looking behind things and sometimes get in trouble, but yeah, feel free to.
Very good. So one of the obvious motifs of this exhibition is the spoon. And so I was just wondering if you could kind of uncover and thread the needle around like what the spoon symbolizes in these different pieces.
Yes, so this piece over here in the corner, 𝙍𝙤𝙨𝙚, was my first work where I started exploring the spoon motif. And the way I was really thinking about it, I had been thinking about, the spoon as a tool for consumption, and it's also a very relational tool. And I think about it as a tool for proportion as well. Like when you're buying things, it's like, okay, how much money you have and how much you consume. There's like no filter between your ability to consume in mass amounts. But when you're eating, it's like this very intimate relationship between this instrument and your mouth. So I think about it as like grounding us in conscious consumption. And I also thought about the double-sided spoon as this, there's two sides of consumption. And how do we create more reciprocity in that relationship? So I kind of first imagined that piece as a performance. It was like a spoon with a very long handle and two sides of the spoon where two people would try to like choreograph their bodies to be able to like sip out of it. So it kind of evolved from a performance idea in my mind. And when we're consuming, we're not seeing the other side of it. We're not seeing all the labor. We're not seeing all the extraction. We're not seeing all the greed and the points of control. So there's a lot on the other side. So it's kind of a wish for repair of that relationship. And I really think about the spoon as a generational relationship as well. Like we were all fed when we were babies by a caretaker, and then, as the circle of life goes, we may be feeding them on the other end. So it is this generational object, it is this intimate object, and it's familiar at the end of the day. Yeah.
Very cool. Have you had the opportunity to do the performance aspect of it?
Not yet, but if anyone is down,
because I can see that.
I had made some ceramic like spoon shapes. They're a little abstract, but then I was having a difficult time finding like the relationship between like the handle to them. So I think I have some ideas now through like offshoots and side quests. So I'll probably come back and revisit it, and you guys are the first to know.
Yeah, it's the engineering element.
Yeah, it's always the engineering. You'll have these ideas in your head, and then it's like, okay, now how does
that work?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to it because it feels like the role of the viewer is so we have our own associations and relationship to it, so it just feels like that's the next obvious like way of relating to it. So another motif that came up in our conversation were not only the spoons as they are being positioned, but the armature, the architecture that enables them to hang in this position. And perhaps that could even be connected to the kind of underlying systems that enable something like an extended family, or something like you had mentioned a globalized trade.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious if you could talk to us more about what inspires you to make work about those systems or underlying structures.
Yeah, I think at the core of it, I'm really interested in intimate relationships, and being that these systems are between us and the source of what it is that we're then receiving at the end. There's a lot missing, and there's a lot lost, and there's a lot that we don't know about, and even just the act of tracing back that can be very challenging. I had an idea actually for another work, the pasta work, where I was like, I want to show every step of the process and try to transcribe those images onto sheets of pasta itself. And it was very difficult, and I have not yet successfully completed that tracing back. And I think that, that's the great opportunity to do an exhibition like this, is an opportunity to investigate things that you're interested in. So it definitely opened the door for me, but to trace back the steps of everything is very challenging, and it shows how much we've lost there with the relationality.
It sounds like even in your description now that it's a way of reveling in a kind of process, and the process being beyond the maker's hand, but also the entire environment that supports something to come into existence.
Yes, exactly. And it's like everything actually is relevant to that process, even things that we don't think are relevant. So things like the temperature and the ocean breeze in order for pasta to dry without cracking, and the relationship with the climate of a very place. So it's like when you're taking that process and isolating it from the place, then you've lost so much, and you're also, I don't know, there's like a imitation of it that is separate from the relational aspect of it. So I don't know, I'm really interested in this idea of imitation, both as like a way to recover memories that we can't restore, and a way of collecting fragments that we can't quite piece together. So I think that imitation can be a really useful tool in that, like to evoke emotions of it. But yeah, that's a little bit about that. I feel like I could go in a bunch of different directions.
Yes. Okay. No, this is really good. So I feel like so far we've talked about systems, we've talked about craft, and we've talked about the unseen, spiritually unseen, and then the systematic unseen. So I feel like another common thread that I feel like is working its way through your work is our relationship to these materials and our relationship to industrialization of our own bodies.
Yeah.
So how are you kind of like through this highlighting changing perhaps asking the viewer to change one's relationship to industrialized materials versus handmade materials? What would you say about that?
Yeah. And I mean, we live steeped in it, you know what I mean? And the industrial world has become our natural environment. So it's impossible to like remove or separate. But I think it's important to attune and start to trace back the steps, if that makes sense. I could go more in depth about the pasta printmaking work, because I feel like that feels relevant to to tracing it back. So I really wanted to dive more into, these different unseen steps of the process behind it. And I was really lucky that I got to go to Brooklyn Granary and Mill, which is, I believe, New York's only stone mill that's here in the city. So they mill their own flour, and they source all regional grains from small regenerative farms that are local. And it's like just the fact that they exist is pretty radical and revolutionary, just because all the systems don't support that. And just the very nature of, you know, industrial grocery stores, where it's like magically and a little bit unnaturally, every single thing from every single place, from every single season is available to us 24/7. And because of that, it's like we lose a relationship with the seasons. And when we lose a relationship with our seasons, we're losing a relationship with our body. And, you know, so it's like
being out of time.
Yeah, yeah. So
can I ask, when was the first time you kind of like realized that there was a disconnect there?
Realized that there was a disconnect.
Like a disconnect between a material that, like a built environment and a simulated environment.
I mean, I think really the kitchen is always just wondering, like, you know, there's handmade and traditional variations, and then there's, you know, store-bought variations. So I think just like the relationship between, you know, that process kind of brings not the disconnect, but the contrast, if that makes sense.
It becomes very poignant.
Yeah, and I guess that we really realize it more so in the absence. Like when you have a favorite snack or fruit at your local store, and then you go and then they don't have it, then you get like, you know, it's so inconvenient, but it's like, oh, actually, you know, what's underneath that, and what are all the stories there? And I think that there's a lot of sacrifice for our convenience, and that is I don't know, it always makes me really sad. I definitely encourage people to watch the Rotten documentaries if you haven't already, and Still Standing on Business Insider, to just see the long and intricate interconnected systems that are behind, you know, the output, like, you know, in certain countries that are farming avocados, and then all of the villages' water is being used for avocado production when the people who are living there don't have enough water to drink and live on. It's like, oh, what's valued more is the export and the money there than the people. And it's not the fault of anyone, but the system. So yeah. Anyways, so that's a bit about it.
But it sounds like there was a moment in your life where you were thinking about, what am I eating, or what am I consuming, and contemplating like veganism, contemplating vegetarianism, like that. It sounds like that's informing your work as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was always a picky eater when I was a kid. I was very picky, and I don't know, I drove my mom crazy with that. I was like, but I think I could kind of tell the difference. And, you know, it made me really sad because I don't know, my parents, they kind of saw cooking as a chore and like something that they had to do. And just seeing, you know, industrialization's effect on the American food system, it's like, you know, when you have 4 kids and when you're working 2 jobs, and when you're moving like this, you're just getting prepackaged things and you're doing what's quick, or you're doing this. So I don't know, there's a whole complex. There's so many things to dive into about how that changes our relationship with eating, but memories of like making homemade things with my grandma was something that, I don't know, felt really attuning for me and felt so much more real. And there was like a long process and a relationality, and we would touch the dough, and then at the end you're eating something that you made, and that just feels so different. But yeah. Yeah,
it strikes me that in many ways, cooking is like our first art form.
Like absolutely.
Our first craft, our first introduction to like the magic of creating something and then being able to like live with it or consume it.
Yeah. And the art of, you know, treating your body with care and nourishing the people around you with care. So
yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to kind of dovetail into something that you've mentioned again, like moving these threads between cooking, consumption, and then art making. You said that it's dangerous not to know where something came from. If you lose that, like you lose yourself. And I'm just wondering around, what have you, in this kind of like subterranean like research project or inkling into figuring things out about, you know, these globalized systems, what have you learned about your own heritage or your own connection to your own lineage?
Let's see where to start. Yeah, so the danger if you don't know where you come from, I think it's very dangerous, because if you don't know who you are and where you come from, then someone else can tell you who you are, or the system will tell you who you are, you know, through various situations. So yeah, I think it's really important. And the way I talk about my work, I've been referring to it as generational leaks, you know, and what is lost between a few generations. You know, language is lost, or certain rituals are lost, and I'm interested in kind of pursuing gardening that, although it's always going to be imperfect. And like we said, with like the regionality, you know, I have Italian lineage, I have Carpathian lineage and Quebecois lineage, and trying to, you know, investigating the pasta, removing that practice from the water, that changes everything. So was there another part of the question I didn't
just
get
kind
to
of
yet?
like what you figured out about your own, well, maybe we can just talk more concretely instead of abstractly about like this piece in particular, because this sounds like it was really grounded in your travels to Italy and like learning about this process.
Yes.
And that seems like a kind of perfect example of the real versus the imitation. And I don't know, maybe you can walk us through it.
Yeah. I visited Italy this year for the first time. It was incredible. Took a pasta making class with my partner, which was so much fun. And it was interesting because it was like filling in the gaps from different directions. You know, my grandma, her mom would make handmade pasta, and it was cute because the distinction between the handmade pasta and just like the store-bought industrial pasta from the store was they would get all excited and call them homemades. They'd be like, "Oh my God, Mom's making homemades," and it was like this big deal and a family ritual, a little bit of I don't know, more like celebratory energy for special occasions. So you know, the ritual, special occasion tied with that. So when I asked my grandma, like, how would your mom make pasta? She, you know, her memory, she doesn't quite remember like the exact proportion of the ingredients, but she remembers the embodied ritual parts. She remembers how to exactly like fold and curl the pasta dough to hand cut the noodles. Like she'll demonstrate that to me at, you know, over 80 years old. And she remembers how her mom would lay newspaper out on the bed to dry all the hand-cut noodles because there wasn't enough surface area on the table to do that. So there's like these ritual embodied parts that have survived the generations, even though like maybe the exact substance hasn't. So now I'll be like on Google asking random questions like, why does my grandma use newspaper to dry pasta? And it's like, well, you know, in Italy, they had these wooden drying racks, and then to catch the fallen fragments, they would put newspaper underneath it. And then it's so interesting that then moved to the domestic space, the active newspaper, and then that moved across the ocean to Albany. So I think that the fragments and these migratory tales are very interesting. So I brought like little transparency pictures of different things that inspired this process. So I do have a picture of the drying racks in Naples, so you could pass that around. So those were like original inspiration for this, and you know, I'm kind of foraging from my built and natural environment, which I gathered these sticks from Governor's Island. It was quite a journey. But
You have the stick guy.
I got a stick connect. Got a stick connect for Meg. So Meg made like a human-sized bird's nest installation on Governor's Island. So I was like, you know where the sticks are at. Please do tell me. So we broke a few rules, and the gate code was shared with me, even though I was locked out, and I was told you didn't hear it from me. So I'm just breaking in a little bit to steal sticks. But yeah, so that transparency is speaking to that part of the process. And then I could kind of go through the process with these. I was trying to cold call different farms to see if I could go on a tour for my art project, and apparently farms don't really know what the heck you're talking about. So I didn't really get any responses yet, but even though it's not in time for this show, I know I will at some point in time go on specific farm tours. But an artist who is a resident on Governor's Island, actually, with the architecture program there, she's a farmer in Canada, which I mentioned, like my dad's father, he's Quebecois. So I was like, oh, I have a tie to this place. And I was like, hey, do you happen to farm wheat? And she was like, oh, I used to, but my friend farms wheat, who's my neighbor. So anyway, so she sent me a picture of the wheat field. So it's like, even though I didn't go, I'm trying to like follow these ridiculous paths to like tracing that back just to get some type of semblance of proximity. So anyway, so this is the wheat field here. So being, the beginning step of the process. And that's the image that you see that is now printed upon industrialized lasagna sheets. So yeah, Manhattan Graphics Center in Mehdi helped me with that. So I'm really grateful that we were able to, put a little bit of the source onto the end substrate that we're consuming. So that was very special to me.
And the reason why it's a transparency is because you're using it in the printmaking process.
Yes, yeah, and I love the way they looked. And I'm like, it allows there to be a porosity. And I think about this like porosity of memory a lot. And for what we can't remember, how can we have this be a relationship that like diffuses both ways? So like with my grandma and making handmade pasta, she didn't quite remember everything. So I started the process for her. And then she would start to remember, oh, and now this is how you fold it. And now this is what you do. So it's like, it does have to come from both directions. So the transparency, I feel like, speaks to that porosity of the process. But yeah, so this is Patrick, the owner and founder of Brooklyn Granary Mill's hand, and this is like the bags to transfer the grain. And then this is the stone mill that is there, which is, I think, just absolutely stunning. So I'll pass around all my little pictures.
So wonderful.
And then this is my grandma's hands when we were making handmade pasta, hand-cut noodles, and she was laying them on the newspaper to dry. So this is the image that is printed upon that dough substrate in the corner. So you can squint at it and be like, I don't know quite what it is, but here it is too. So yeah, that's a little bit of a peek into the process. But yeah, so Italy, took me a long time to get back to the question, but so Italy was really special because in this cooking class, it was the grandson of a nonna who, this is her practice, and he was like a 5-star Michelin chef, and I don't know, it was really cool to get to like take class from him. But in teaching the pasta making, he also shared an expression that really hit my heart, and that expression was, that the dough is ready, like rolled thin enough and transparent enough, when you hold it up to the window and you're able to see the church through the window. So I was like, wow. Anyways, that speaks back to the nature of these transparencies, and that being like an essential, essential part. But it also brought me back to my own grandma, her childhood home. They had a church outside of the window, and she had shared with me that that church had been demolished and how sad they all were because that was like a big part of the family. And you know, and in its place, an industrial supermarket was made. So it was like, oh, it's so bizarre that, you know, something as little as the church outside the window made its way into becoming a part of the ritual, a part of the sayings, a part of your testing how you know a material is ready. And I think about these factories and I'm like, oh, well, if these factories that now have been able to manufacture the exact controlled environment, if now all the people no longer knew how to hand make things and were dependent on those factories, if they ever broke, how would we be able to reconnect with that feeling of knowing that it's right? Yeah. So anyways, I think about that quote a lot as being a real anchor, and just being really important. And it shows that, you know, the process is not removed from its environment again. Like, you know, gentrification is happening and we all see it every day. And even the noises outside the window being different affect life, you know, and affect totally. Rituals and ways of being and living. So, yeah, so those are just some things I'm thinking about.
Very cool. Thank you for bringing these amazing transparencies, because I feel like they give the context for the images that are somewhat distorted, but in like such a beautiful way.
Yeah.
I would love to hear more about the role of experimentation and play in this body of work, because it seems like it required a lot of, you know, you have a vision and then bringing it into reality took maybe a couple different routes. So
yes, absolutely. I had, like, you know, you have a specific idea and then it's really this balance of like, okay, how focused on your idea do you want to be and how receptive can you be to, you know, the changes that are happening. So I think that ultimately it doesn't even matter what the final product was, but what mattered is that trying to materialize this project had me making pasta dough, handmade, so many times over and over in different situations, in my home, at work, at Powerhouse Arts and Manhattan Graphic Center. So it's like, you know, the project asked for me to do this ritual that my family did that had been missing from me. So I feel like in that aspect, it is complete, even if maybe I didn't get 100% the exact like material integrity that I wanted, but it's honest, and I think that's what matters.
Absolutely. Let me think. So one of the few times that I came into the gallery, someone was observing your work who had never seen it before, and she was like, "What happens to the work after the show?" And she was like truly taken aback because there's this obvious quality of like ephemerality to your work, and I'm just curious about what goes in. How are you thinking about work that returns to the earth, work that has a life cycle unto itself? It's kind of about that and contains it.
Yeah, that's why I'm slowly discovering maybe I'm an installation artist, because if I'm using food and I'm using pasta, then at the end, thank you, I can compost it. And I feel such a release in composting and knowing that I'm sending it back to the earth and the right systems are in place in a lot of people's hands. You know, I work with Earth Matter on Governor's Island. I don't work with them, but I partner with them through Beam Center. And just getting to see, you know, the process behind composting, I really admire it. So I used to every Sunday, which is funny because it's like, you know, Sundays are kind of like church ritual day. And I grew up, you know, going to church a lot. But here in my life now, I don't so much. But I would go and take the compost every Sunday because that's when they were open. It was like very specific hours between 2 and 4 on Sunday. So it became like a ritual in and of itself. Now I have a bin at the corner of my block that I can use my app with. So I don't have to be quite as intentional setting out for a Sunday ritual, but but there's like a release in that, and there's like a completion to the metabolizing of that. So it feels like, I think that's the hard thing, being working 3D and 2D too, as well, in New York, where all the spaces are small and our studios are accumulating, and it disrupts the feng shui. So I'm very happy when I can compost work, or when I can bring these sticks back to Governor's Island and throw them back in the pile. That'll make me really happy. Or
to be made into someone else's art.
Yeah. So it's almost rewarding. But we're always grappling with our relationship between, holding on and letting go, and feeling like, oh, if this material thing is gone, then the memory is gone. And, no, it's not. So, yeah.
No, it feels like it also elevates the role of the image in terms of like documentation and its persistence in our like collective memory of being in this room right now.
Yeah, it's true. I think of like Ana Mendieta's work a lot, and like how important documentation was to her work, because she was doing, very like new and radical things, and being like, oh, this body of water is going to fill up this silhouette, and then it's going to disperse, So it's funny, because I took a class with Janine Antony, actually, at Home in the Body. And one of the questions she had asked us was like, if you could only choose one medium, like what would it be? And I was like, oh my God, how could I possibly do that? But then when I thought about it, I was like, oh, well, if I wanted to work in every medium and then it went away at the end or dispersed at the end, then I guess it would have to be photography, because then you would like take a photo of whatever it is and then allow it to be. So I don't know, this is the first time I've actually worked with like photo transfers and transparency. So I'm definitely excited to explore a little more of that in the future. Yeah.
Very cool. Another thing that's come up a lot during this conversation is just the role of Governor's Island. And it seems like it's like a character in the novel of your life. So I'm just curious if you could explain like the Beam Center and Governor's Island to folks who don't know.
Yeah, Beam Center is awesome. If you don't know about Beam, now you do. Really creative, lively group of folks who don't take no for an answer, and just keep trying things and really care more about the process and experience. We're a youth-facing organization. We work with youth, and we partner with different artists and architects to do public art projects too. But we're really interested in the experience and the pursuit and the learning and what we learn about ourselves through these pursuits. So I think just being around like-minded, dynamic artists and just great-hearted, generous people every day is like, I don't know, it's incredible. And like everyone's always down for a scheme, we're always down to scheme. Serena and Izzy know we're always scheming, and it's a really nice place. Everyone's like, where did you get the spoons? That's like a big question. I'm like, I stole them from my job. We had done a jewelry making workshop one summer on Governor's Island, and we had all these like vintage spoons and forks and knives. So if anyone goes into the bin now, they're gonna just find forks and knives and be like, I wonder where all the spoons went. But I guess in terms of returning things back to their places, maybe when I'm done with certain installations, I could sneak them back in there and no one would ever know. But
amazing. So I'm going to ask you one last question, and then I think we can open it up to the group. So if you have something you want to ask Rose, consider it now. So you titled the show Sun-Dried, and I was just wondering if you could explain kind of the thinking behind that title, and how this piece as well.
Yes, it's really my misinterpretation of a ritual. Because I was thinking, I have this idea where I'm going to be making handmade pasta in the gallery, and it's going to be drying in the sun, because Tempest sun is like, it's perfect. So I was thinking about pasta sun drying, but then as I was coming into these like material frictions, I was doing more research, and it's actually like the moisture of the air and the temperature or proximity to the ocean that allowed handmade pasta, at least, to dry and hold its like integrity. So it's kind of like, oh, here I was thinking it's all about the sun, but it's actually about this larger relationship between like the sun and the ocean and the salt and the breeze and the air and the climate. So yeah, sun-dried was thinking about the process of this drying. So
what you're saying is pasta is like location specific.
At
some
least,
ways.
yeah, at least like, to do it handmade and to do it the traditional way in order to get it strong enough. But I mean, you can still make pasta anywhere. It will be different because of the place, because of the air. And if you make it and then you like cook it that same day, it's good. But in my like material pursuits of trying to have it not entirely crumble and fall apart in the gallery, those were some of the things that I was thinking about. So
very, very cool. Yeah. Does anyone have a question for Rose? Yes. Let me pass you this one.
So I'm thinking about the time that you've spent doing all of this like iterative experimentation and the time that you spent figuring out how to hang these spoons. And also that it sounds like, the time spent in the kitchen is really important as being like an act of care. So I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about like the role of pace, like the pace at which you make work and the role of time in your work.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Pace and time. It's, it's definitely over and over. And I mean, I think about that's the way we learn things. So maybe that's the way we unlearn things too, is, by doing something very simple over and over again. And, changing it here and there. But yeah, the pace is just really repetitive and so time intensive, and definitely I feel like that you're doing something right if what you originally start with is kind of outgrowing you being able to hold it, and you need to ask for help. So I definitely, like with this project, needed to ask for help, a lot more than my comfort zone, but it's a beautiful thing and opening of me. Like I was joking with Daphne that we need to get t-shirts that say like, ask me about the spoons, because like this hanging process was insane. And I had made like a spoon map that, a lot of friends have seen me labor over this spoon map. And it's like, technically I have done absolutely nothing. Technically I haven't hung one spoon, but I've spent like 20 hours how not to make a spoon map and trying different sizes and different scales and different arrangements and on transparencies, and then taking one transparency and another and tracing the outline of every spoon and labeling every spoon. There's actually so much labeling. So I guess that it became a lot about tracking, which is interesting. Also, like when you're trying to trace back, like, things about your family, it's like all we have is like this tracking, and like maybe they spell your family members' names wrong on like the immigration papers, and so it became a lot about trying to track and trying to keep things like neat and organized, because it's so easy for it to tangle. All these strings, so easy for it to tangle. Like half of it was, we had the spoon map and we split it over the HVAC system so that some spoons are hanging from one area, some from another. And like the distance, each spoon has 2 holes drilled into it and 3 points of contact, 2 strings going up and 1 string going to the back. It's very precarious. But then even when we had all the spoons labeled at the top and then all the strings labeled on the side of the wall, Daphne was much better at this than I was, because she was keeping things pretty organized. When I did it, I was just taping things, and then I was like, oh wow, wait, this string is crossing in front of this string. Now I have to untangle it. So it's like half of the work itself wasn't actually making the spoons or making spoon arrangement. It was like untangling was actually a huge part of the time that it took in making. So then then it's funny because you develop these impromptu systems of how to untangle. So I had like a long dowel, and I would get up on a ladder and like slide the dowel from the top to the bottom very slowly. Then the spoon would start to unravel and then be like, okay, great. Now that each string is separate, now quickly draw the string to the back so that it doesn't twist. Yeah, so there was like a lot of physics with that. And I learned 3 new words from Chris that I'm forgetting. What are the 3 words about?
Roll, pitch, and yaw.
So demonstrate.
Roll.
This is roll,
Pitch, and that's yaw.
pitch, and yaw. So all of these things had to be considered with the spoons. Because if they start to tip a little bit, it's like, oh, now it doesn't feel like it's feeding you. It just feels like it's flopped over. So yeah. Anyway, so there was a lot of unseen time that goes into the work for sure.
And also shout out to Chris for installing a hot plate.
Can we please
Can
take
we
a
please
moment
acknowledge Chris for like
to
being incredible?
appreciate this?
the
Yeah.
pedestal that is this beautiful work.
I mean, I had I showed you guys the drawing earlier, but I had just shown Daphne and Chris the sketch, and then Chris made his own series of sketches trying to figure out like the internal structure, and then he just made this thing like in 3 days. So yeah,
Yes, exactly. Yes.
yeah. So there's a bit. So yeah, he made the magic trick happen. So secrets out. There is a hot plate underneath the bowl, which is how it has its bubble and how it has its steam. But yeah, so without him and Daphne could not have pulled this off. So yeah, thanks for bringing the magic and the alchemy to this space.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Oh yeah.
Do we have another question?
Yes.
Hi, I was.
Oh wait. Oh sorry. Let me give you this. Just so we have it for posterity.
I was curious. You were talking about the work that you did with the acetates and the transparency, and kind of like the process about it that you really enjoyed. I was curious if you could just talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah. So this part, Powerhouse Arts, I was fortunate enough to get an artist subsidy program with them in the Manhattan Graphics Center. So they were really supportive in that part of the process. So I would like send them the images, and they helped print it onto the transparencies. And from there, you expose that onto we were using silkscreen printing. So then from there, they would use the light table and expose that, do the emulsion on the silkscreen, and then, press the image into it, expose it with the light table, and then remove it with like the power washer. So then that has the image in the screen itself. So then when you like ink it, then like squeegee it, then that comes through. So we tried a bunch of different things with it too, because I had proposed the project to them and was talking about pasta, so I wanted to try printing with squid ink. But it's a very particular process. Printmaking is so particular and so elemental. So it's like, okay, well, squid ink might work as like a ink on paper. It didn't quite work with like the silk screening. So we tried different things, and we ended up going with like standard silkscreen ink because that's what allowed the images to be more visible. But yeah, tried a bunch of different things with that. But I'm interested in learning more about it. So.
And your
Yeah.
interpretation of it, though, the way that you were talking about, that's
Yeah. So, the transparency, I think, it's like we can see through it. And that's the whole thing about the process behind what we consume is we can't see into it. We can't see beyond it. And a lot of times we're not even trying to look. So I like the idea of like making these different steps of the process transparent, because it's like we can view into it and we can layer them. And I think that the layering of the images is very beautiful as well, because you're seeing this like, it's kind of like sedimentary rock. It's like you're seeing this buildup of all of this over time, and how that is compressed and how that becomes what it is. And I mean, you can't really see from here, but in this corner, I have like the transparency of like my grandmother's hands, and there's like 2 of them over each other, like reversed. But something I think about a lot is like this crossing I had learned about like a healing technique to balance, like the left and right hemispheres of your brain. You do alternate nostril breathing, or sometimes you do like different things like twisting your body and your limbs. So I don't know, I think that it allows for this diffusion in the same way of like the permeability. When you can see through something, it's like becomes porous, the image becomes porous. So yeah, it's like I believe that, there's healing that can take place from us looking back and remembering and studying what came before us, but then there's also a healing that can take place when we are consciously doing things and kind of sending it back up the bloodline. And I believe in the power of that. So yeah, thank you.
My question was kind of answered by that one. I was curious if you were printing with squid ink.
Oh my gosh, crazy!
So a follow-up question to that is like moving forward, especially as you were talking earlier about that performance piece with the spoon, like are you thinking in terms of like edible art? Is that something that you're curious about, or are you going maybe another direction?
Great question. I feel like I'll end a show with like more questions than answers. I'm kind of like, I have, there's a million directions I could go in and what to choose. But I think before being like, I'm gonna make edible art, I just wanna like take more cooking classes. And like, I like spending time in my kitchen, but sometimes I'll be on autopilot, just like making what I make or my go-to things, but taking the time to like consciously be like, I'm going to make this from hand, and I am going to plan, Actually, I'm excited because on Monday I'm taking a sourdough class, which, that's also, my great-grandma on my dad's side, she would always, also an Italian woman, she would always make all her own bread. So that was like her thing. Everyone's like, yeah, like Catherine would always make all her own bread. Her name is Catherine Magnolia. Beautiful last name. Anyway, so I think my goal is to just be cooking more in general, and I have a feeling that will leak into my practice one way or another. So without like the specific intention to, but probably will become something like that. Yeah, but I think more like experiential things in general, like more sensory activated and embodied experiences for sure. Yeah, thank you.
Lovely. Do we have any more questions? Thank you guys for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Rose.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
So much. Yeah.